Barry Trammell.
I'm Jenni Carlson. Welcome to the Jenni and Berry Show.
Bedlam football is a thing of the past. The series finale was Saturday, or at least it's the last game for now. And while it was a wildly entertaining game, it was another OU loss. 27-24, Cowboys win it. We'll talk about what went wrong for the Sooners, how they get back on track, the challenges that West Virginia will present on Saturday, and much more.
But first, we want to say thanks to these sponsors for supporting the Jenni and Berry Show. MidFirst Bank, Laser Light Skin Clinic, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, the Oklahoma Ford Dealers Association. Drive into your best in Oklahoma Ford dealers today for the best deals on Ford's full lineup of trucks and SUVs. Ford is the best in Oklahoma.
Well, Jacko, we were there for the historic last Bedlam. We'll see how long it was the last Bedlam, but what an atmosphere in Stillwater. I thought the Sooners really showed out. I was surprised at the number of OU fans that were able to find tickets and get in. I thought they made a good sound impression, at least. I mean, it wasn't when something good happened for the Sooners, it wasn't quiet. You could tell the Oklahoma fans were there. But was that atmosphere Saturday? Do you think it was different than other Bedlams? Was the electricity, the anticipation, all those things? Was it an upgrade even over what we normally see in Stillwater for Bedlam?
You know, I have a hard time saying one way or another. I was down outside, down towards the field, basically where the Gallagher-Iba walkway is. I was there for about the last 5 or so minutes of the game, and I thought the volume was as loud as I remember ever hearing it in Stillwater, and that's probably Bedlam's and other, big games, Texas coming in. K-State games have been pretty rowdy over the years. So I don't know if it could be much louder, quite honestly. So I thought the volume was loud. Now, we talked a lot last week, Barry, about sort of the vitriol or the, sort of meanness that we thought might percolate in the stands. I don't know how it was on an individual level. I'm sure, if you were a Sooner fan amongst a lot of Cowboy fans, there was probably some nastiness and probably went the other way too from time to time. But as far as like sensing that, it was sort of different or all the fans were there early, Barry. I will say that was definitely different. You saw a huge crowd there a good half hour before the game was getting ready to start. So people got there early. But as far as that vitriol, I don't know if I sensed it. Did you notice that? I know we were inside in the press box, so maybe it's hard for us to see, but I didn't really sense that like I thought I might.
No, and you're right. We're insulated. Maybe the most insulated press box in America at Boone Pickens Stadium. So we are probably the least qualified people to discuss it. But we had a nice walk from where we parked to the stadium. It was more of a festive mood, I thought, than any kind of tension between fans. We saw significant numbers of OU fans among the thousands and thousands of Cowboy fans. So it didn't seem worse than normal on that regard. But I did think the atmosphere was electric. I did think it was a case of just anticipation, not of necessarily the end, but of every play, like as if, this could be the play. This could be the snap that is going to affect everybody's mood for 5 years when they think of this series. Certainly the game meant so much to OSU, being on the wrong side of history for so long, but a game that they needed not for just this season, but to help patch the wounds of decades past. And the Sooners wanted to win for all the reasons we know about this season, but also just to continue that domination, headed to the SEC, and they wanted to keep that status and give OSU no bragging rights of any kind. So I think every snap seemed to have more weight, more anticipation than usual. And I wonder how the Sooners handled it. I don't know that OU's poise was what it wanted to be. A couple of the wild snaps,
Mm-hmm.
One was attributed to the noise. Brent Venables lost his poise, comes out on the field significantly. He wasn't 5 steps out. He was about 30 steps out and gets a penalty for arguing. So I don't know that the Sooners handled the environment as well as they might have wanted to.
No, I would agree with that. And I don't necessarily know that it's a case where, they haven't been in, electric environments or loud stadiums because, I think Oklahoma tends to take that brand on the road, and it's probably going to be as highly charged as, any environment that, will be at whatever, away venue they're at. But yeah, just the emotion of that game. I mean, I think it hit differently. And anybody who would say, oh, just another game. I mean, Brent Venables talked in that regard. Mike Gundy talked in that regard last week. And I think that only goes so far. I mean, I think when you hear all year about the other team and, fans and players are not immune to that. I think even though that Mike Gundy said this, and I think there holds some truth, that players tend to know each other better nowadays than they used to. So some of that animosity that comes with distance has disappeared because these guys are playing 7-on-7 together. They are going to camps together. They do know each other from social media. But yet I think that doesn't change the fact that both sides wanted to win that game badly. And yeah, the poise factor, it was lacking for the Sooners. Now, I know a lot of Sooner fans, Barry, they want to talk about that no call on the pass interference. So let's get to the elephant in the room. Did that no call, Dylan Smith guarding Drake Stoops in the end zone and not getting a call, pass being incomplete, did that cost OU the game?
No, it did not. It was a bad call, I think, unless still proven otherwise. It looked like textbook pass interference. Would have set up the Sooners inside the 5-yard line. I think they were on the 19 or the 24. Anyway, they'd been in great shape to score and take the lead. But welcome to modern football, which is in tight games, flags or non-flags are huge, but they're part of the game. And if you watch the NFL, every Sunday, pass interference is at the core of what we're watching. And you just can't say, oh, it's a conspiracy. The Big 12's out to screw us. Should have been a pass interference. The game was won. This was not Keith Stanberry's interception being waved off in 1984 against Texas. This was not a thing that would have won the game. Sooners still would have had to score from close range. Still would have had to stop the Cowboys. We don't know. So we know that OU got the ball back and had a chance to win, didn't produce. So, this is a no excuses situation as far as I'm concerned. You didn't get the call. You got to overcome it. Sooners didn't. So nobody wants to hear that, but that's the truth. This is not the Oregon onside kick. This is just a non-call with 4:45 or whatever it was, 5 minutes left in the game. Didn't go your way. Do something about it. Sooners didn't.
And I think it can be a missed call and not cost Oklahoma the game. I think those two things can actually be true because this wasn't the last play of the game. There was so much time on the clock that you can't say that was the definitive play of the game. And if OU fans want to argue that, I know some OSU fans that want to go back to the Bedlam game with the fake field goal and the delay of game clock had run out. The play clock had run out. It was at 0 before that ball was snapped. So there's always going to be calls that are missed. And the fact, again, you bring up a great point, Barry. It wasn't a final play of the game situation. So I think it can be a missed call, but it can also not have cost Oklahoma the game because the other elephant in the room, Barry, was the pass interference that was called and drew some serious ire from Brent Venables, leading to an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. This is the second game in a row, Barry, that the bench has been called for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty because of something a coach said. It wasn't Brent Venables at Kansas, at least he didn't indicate as much, but it was against OSU. what in the world is going on here?
Well, I think it's emotions overflowing, and every sideline in football is emotional. I think every coach yells at the ref that I know of. The difference is twofold. One is Brent went so far out on the field. If you watch the official that made the call, I mean, he's out there and he's trying to figure out what's, where to place the ball and exactly all the protocols. And he just glances over and he hears a coach yelling at him, and he's had his ears filled his whole life with coaches yelling at him. He looks over, Brent Venables standing right beside him, 30 feet, 10 yards out onto the field. And that's a no-no. Some OU fans say, coaches come out on the field all the time. They don't go that far out. And it's just an automatic. It's like some of the things that are sort of squishy, some things that are, undetermined whether it'll get you in trouble. Going 72 and a 55, you might not get pulled over. Go 92, they're pulling you. They're not going to say, let him go. That's not happening. You run out on the field that far, the flag's coming. Brent Venables is an emotional guy. It's one of the things that's made him a great coach. But you can't lose your poise like that. The Kansas game, that's the go-ahead, the winning touchdown drive. Kansas gets the benefit of a 15-yard penalty. Then the emotion that comes out of it from OU gives another 15 yards. That happened Saturday again. 2 straight game-winning drives against the Sooners, fueled by 30 yards worth of penalties. That was a life preserver to the Cowboys. They were backed up at the 8. So yeah, the pass interference, if you're a Sooner fan, you don't want that called. You say that's a no call. It's a tough call. But if you live with it, OSU's on the 23, still got a world away to go. All of a sudden they're on the 38.
Yeah.
They got new life. So yeah. Not a very nice stretch of poise for the Sooners and Brent Venables.
Yeah, and the thing about these calls with pass interference and all of that, the Sooners are headed to the SEC, and I can tell you the league that will look the other way on pass interference, and it's the SEC. So if they think they're heading to a league where they're going to start getting all these calls, especially with pass interference, that ain't happening in the SEC. So they need to get used to, calls not going their way, especially when it comes to that specific penalty. But yeah, I mean, I think Venables has got to be better. And frankly, this is going to sound crazy, but I don't think he has a get back coach. I think he needs a get back coach, Barry. I don't know who, how they fill that role, but you got to keep that guy on the sideline. And if he had somebody standing directly behind him, grabbing at his shirt, maybe he doesn't get out 10 yards onto the field past the numbers. He's inside the numbers, Barry. He was practically part of the play at that point. He's one of the 11 Sooners on the field, 12 then. So yeah, you gotta be better than that. You gotta keep your cool in those situations, because that was huge. That was a huge sequence right there to go from 15-yard penalty, which nobody wants, to 30 yards in penalties. Boy, that's a killer. That's a killer for a defense to have that go that far south. And I mean, let's talk about other issues, because it wasn't just Brent Venables getting a bad penalty. What else went wrong for the Sooners? What tops your list of concerns coming out of that Bedlam loss?
Well, OU actually found a running game, right? I mean, Gavin Sawchuk goes 64 yards, I think it was, on the third snap of the game, touchdown. Tawee Walker gets in the second half, has a bunch of good runs, ends up in 59 yards on 8 carries, the 20-something yard touchdown run. So that Sooners ran the ball the way they wanted to run the ball. But the passing game was not as great, and Dillon Gabriel's mobility, or his ability to run, was curtailed. Cowboys contained him. They didn't let him scramble. The Dillon Gabriel run game with draws and zone reads, those things, really didn't do much at all. Sooners didn't even really go to it much. So that was a problem. And I did not think the OU receivers were very good. Nick Anderson dropped what would have been a long catch, probably a touchdown. We're talking 60-something yard touchdown catch. He drops the ball. Jalil Farouk makes some, has 2 false starts. Drake Stoops, old reliable, doesn't get enough depth on the game's ultimate play, the 4th and 5 out pattern. He basically makes a 3-yard route, and Dylan Smith keeps him. He's going out of bounds, so Dylan Smith just has to not let him turn upfield, and fairly easy play for Dylan Smith, just being in the right position. So I didn't think the OU receivers had a good day, and I think that was problematic for this game. Brennan Thompson, a big play. We sometimes forget, late third quarter, 4th and 5. Sooners are down about the 30-yard line of OSU. Brent Venables said, let's go for it. They run a little curl to Brennan Thompson. He's open, hits him in the gut, drops the ball. Yeah. Just not a stellar day for the OU receiving corps.
Yeah, and I thought the turnovers were a real issue. You referenced the one that seemed to be a snap that was way too early and caused a fumble, but a Dylan Gabriel interception. I think they put the ball on the ground 4 times, lose 2 of them. 3 turnovers is a good way to get yourself beat. So I think the turnover issues, that has to be a concern heading forward. You don't want to turn it over that much. Oklahoma's defense has been good in getting turnovers, but they only managed 1 on Saturday. So to lose the turnover battle by 2 in a game that close is going to be pretty hard to overcome. So I think that's a definite area of concern heading forward for the Sooners. What about on the flip side, Barry? What'd you like about, obviously the Sooners only lose by 3, hostile environment, high stakes. I know that's a cold comfort to a lot of Sooners, but still means that some things went right for OU on Saturday. What tops that list for you?
Well, it starts with stopping Ollie Gordon. Thought the OU defensive game plan, no surprise there with Brent Venables, was really good. They said, we're not letting Ollie Gordon beat us. They loaded the box, made for a really strong game from Alan Bowman. He completed a lot of passes, a lot of production. But I think you got to do that against OSU, and the Sooners did. 136 yards for Gordon on 33 carries. You'll live with that any day. The longest run was 35. He had a 35-yard run and a 20-yard run. But outside of that, mostly kept in check. So stopping Gordon is the first mission, and the Sooners did that. I thought also that the defense really hung in there without Danny Stutzman. He's the emotional leader. In some ways, he's the physical leader. They played without their star linebacker. Kip Lewis was really good, 15 tackles, showed that he's going to be a good player very soon, maybe right now. So lots to like. The Sooner defensive backs did not let Cowboys run free. Bowman completed a lot of passes, but a lot of tight coverage. So I thought the defense, for the most part, really held up. And that's encouraging on the long view of where OU has been wanting to go for a long time. So held Cowboys to 3 touchdowns. You had to like your chances if you did that. Didn't work out, but I thought the defense was really good.
Yeah, to me, the biggest positive I thought was Kip Lewis. Just to if you'd have told Sooner fans coming out of the Kansas game, no Stutzman, you're not going to have him. I think a lot of people would have thought, I think OU might be in trouble, and maybe in trouble pretty badly. Kip Lewis was not, Danny Stutzman's absence was not the reason that Oklahoma lost that game. And so the fact that Kip Lewis was able to step in, play as well as he did, I'm intrigued by the guy. I don't think that you say Stutzman gets healthy and Lewis still plays. That's not happening. Danny Stutzman, once he's healthy, he's back on the field for the Sooners. But now it's a question of how do you get Kip Lewis onto the field some too, because clearly he can play. So, how do they now suddenly they've got another good option there at linebacker. we saw the Jaron Canick was out a little bit, I think because he wasn't playing well. So they got some reserve guys in there who held the line pretty well. I think that's a really positive moving forward. I don't, obviously it didn't win the game, but I don't think it cost him the game. And considering how they've tried to build this defense, increase the depth, increase the talent, I think we're starting to see signs that that's actually there. In a moment when they needed a reserve to step up, Kip Lewis was there to do it. So I think that's a really positive forward moving sign for Oklahoma as it relates to that defense. Well, let's talk about where the Sooners stand right now. Obviously, back-to-back losses. Is there a feeling of Sooners are in trouble, or can they finish this thing strong, Barry? Their schedule sets up well to finish strong, but where do you come down on the in trouble or finish strong?
I'm way more on the finish strong side of things. The truth of the matter is, now nobody in Crimson really wants to hear this, but here's what's happened the last 2 weeks. The Sooners went on the road to really hostile environments against top 25 teams. Don't look now, but Kansas is really good. They're 7-2. They just went to Ames and won.
Yep.
And when OU went up there, you were there, Jacko. This is a football program that's been Rip Van Winkle. It's been asleep for 20 years, and the fans are all of a sudden excited about the ball that's oblong and not round, and a full house. Then they have the lightning delay, big mess, and the Sooners get beat right at the end, just inches away from winning it on defense, inches away from winning it on offense. Any kind of reasonable analysis says, you know what, that was not a bad loss. And then Saturday, you go to Stillwater, an historic cauldron, the series being what it is, OSU playing the way it's been playing. There's nothing easy about that, and the Sooners go and have a chance to win. I don't think the results of the last 2 weeks are any kind of a warning sign about Oklahoma football. I think they got a good team. I think they can still finish strong. The schedule really works out. West Virginia's good. After that, the Sooners go to Brigham Young. Cougars are really struggling. Come home for TCU. TCU's really struggling. Then you take your chances and see what happens after that. But no, I think OU can finish strong, and I am not down on Oklahoma just because of these 2 losses. Modern football, you go to the end of the game, you win some, you lose some. It's what happened with UCF. Sooners won it. It's what happened with Texas. Sooners won it. Last 2 weeks, Sooners lost it at the end. So if you're going to play close games, these things are going to happen. Close games are going to happen, but I'm bullish on Oklahoma. I think they can finish strong. I think a 10-2 regular season is not just possible, but likely, and that would be a really solid finish.
Yeah, and it would, considering that losing record last year, Barry, double-digit wins, big step in the right direction. Now, I don't think Oklahoma can get to the Big 12 title game. They would have to have a ton of help to get there. I think Texas looks like they're riding strong to get there. Oklahoma State, as easy as you just outlined, OU's schedule to the remainder. OSU's is even easier. They get 3 of the 4 newbies are left on their schedule. So they would have to have a serious stumble to lose any of those games. Could happen because they're on the road for at least, 2 of them. So, they've got road games, but I still like their chances to finish out with victories these next 3 weeks. So I don't think OU makes the Big 12 title game, but 10 wins. I mean, before the season started and you knew exactly what Oklahoma was going to look like, before you knew that Dylan Gabriel was going to be better than he was a year ago, before you knew, some of the positives, Stutzman and the defense of their evolution, I think a lot of people would have said, I like a 10-win regular season. And I still think Oklahoma's got a great chance to do that. But I would be surprised to see them in Arlington, Barry.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy to make it to Arlington. They do have to have some help. The best help would be if someone beat Texas. Now, the Horns have a tougher schedule than Oklahoma does down the stretch. They go to Fort Worth. Texas at TCU is never easy for Texas. The The Horned Frogs have dominated the series since coming into the Big 12. Sonny Dykes' team is not real good this year. Not terrible, but they're sort of mediocre. But in Fort Worth, that won't be easy. Also, Texas goes to Iowa State. It could be 26 degrees and windy in Ames. Might even be a night game. That would, and Iowa State plays defense. You're not going to go up there and score 41 points, I don't think. So it figures to be tight. So I wouldn't lose hope, but you do need some help, particularly from the Longhorns. And we've seen it happen before. So stay tuned on that. But the only way you can take advantage if something did happen is if you win out. So I think that's what's got to be paramount for the Sooners. And of course, winning out the tough. Go ahead, Jacko.
Are you telling me there's a chance we get another Bedlam?
Well, I don't. Yes, I am. It's a small chance.
I know.
But that would be funny, though. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
People like us and everybody else been talking about final Bedlam. Not only was it not the final Bedlam, it wasn't the final Bedlam of the 5-week period in which we were talking. So,
what do we know?
By the way, sign me up for a Bedlam in Arlington. We've
Totally.
been looking for it for these many years. So, that would be fun. Now, if the Sooners are going to win out, though, biggest hurdle is going to be West Virginia. The Mountaineers are a good team. They've had a nice year under Neil Brown. They were picked last in the Big 12. We didn't know what we were talking about, we being the collective media. And the WVU has gotten up to 6-3. They're bowl eligible. They're a lot closer to 7-2 than they are 5-4 with the Hail Mary loss at Houston, which just has to gnaw at West Virginia still. If they win that Hail Mary game, they're tied for the Big 12 lead. So They're coming in with the same conference record as Oklahoma. So beware the Mountaineers is what I say.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. This is one of those games that, it could be another close game. Oklahoma has found itself in close games after last year being in close games. Now, they lost those close games last year. They're winning more of them this year. But this sets up to be another tight game, Barry. I mean, I could definitely see this being another one-possession game. I think Oklahoma wins. Why don't we go right to score predictions? What do you say? What's it going to look like on Saturday?
I think it'll be tight. I think OU's defense, will keep the kibosh on West Virginia mostly. It's not – West Virginia is a solid team, not great on offense. I think the Sooners can sort of control the game, but in a fairly close score manner. I'm picking OU 27-20. We're accustomed to shootouts when the Sooners and Mountaineers get together. It's not going to be that way, but I do think OU controls the game and wins, not with ease, but with some level of comfort. I'm going 27-20.
Yeah, I was thinking about in that range too. I'll go 28-23 Sooners, but I do think it's just, to me, I was listening to scores from the Big 12. I think this was maybe driving home after we got back from Stillwater on Saturday, and they were listing off final scores. And I knew winners for the Big 12 games, but I hadn't heard final scores. And there were so many 1 and 2 and 3 point games in this league, Barry. That's just where we are. This league, we've talked about parity. We see it. But then you look at the scores, and nobody, with very few exceptions, nobody runs away from anybody else. So I don't know why this next game against West Virginia would be much different for the Sooners. I think it's going to be a one-possession game again, but I like Oklahoma's chances to go ahead and win against West Virginia.
Well, that's all the time we've got this week. Remember, the Sooners host West Virginia, 6 p.m. Saturday in Norman. Jenni and more of our Sellout Crowd team will be there. Plus, we'll have all sorts of OU content this week at selloutcrowd.com. You can find our content, too, at barrytrammell.com and jenny-carlson.com. And if this happens to be your first time hearing or watching us, be sure to subscribe to our show on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. If you like what you hear, please leave a review and subscribe. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.